Hey everyone, welcome back to another LEGO video. Today I'm going to be starting a new series that I'm calling Speculation Sets. This is sort of like the custom sets that I've done in the past, although rather than basing them off of the set pictures, I'm basing them off of set names. So in this first episode, we're going to be taking a look at Kai's Mech Jet. This of course is an upcoming Ninjago 2020 set for Season 12, so if you guys are excited, make sure to like the video and subscribe to support my channel. And with that, let's just jump right into the first episode. Taking a closer look, this plane really does have a lot of interesting techniques to actually design it. So starting up in the front, you can see the nose of this plane uses some nice sort of wedge pieces, I guess that's what those are, as well as the pentagonal shield piece on a hinge, and that just gives a nice point to the front of the plane. Yeah, not really too much to say about that. Moving back from that, you can see the cockpit, obviously, with a nice windscreen that can open up. Inside, there's some space for Kai to actually be placed in. You can see how he fits in right here. And he fits in actually really well, even to the point so that when you close the windscreen properly rests on the sort of sides and actually isn't obstructed by Kai's hood. So it just perfectly fits in there, and that really works out well. Next to the cockpit, you can see there are these sort of slope pieces that bow out from the plane that sort of lead into the wings. I guess that's the best way to explain it. It just obviously makes a lot more sense if you're actually looking at it here. Those actually have some stickers on them to give it a bit more design. So right next to the wings, on both sides actually, there are these spring-loaded shooters that LEGO loves to put in sets, so I decided why not put it in this, because it's probably something LEGO is going to do in the actual Kai's Mech Jet set, if that is what it's actually called. Anyway, yeah, this does have spring-loaded shooters next to the wings, and it kind of looks like it might just be activated by pressing them down like you normally would, and it is, although it's through a bit of an interesting function, which I will get into. But first, I want to kind of take a look at some of the other details on the top of this thing. So on top of these spring-loaded shooters, you can see there are these two wings, which are in an interesting place. Not probably that great for aerodynamics, although it does look pretty interesting, and it's a bit more unique than just having them in the back. I felt like that looked a little bit too much like the Kai Fighter, as this thing does have a lot of resemblance to that. Obviously, the color scheme is very similar, so there's obviously going to be a lot of parallels there. Though I did want to mix things up a bit, so I put the wings in the center here, which is a very interesting sort of choice for those tail pieces. Moving on to the wings, they are actually symmetrical, so there's nothing super special between the two wings, but they do have some nice tiling details, as well as those quarter-round tiles actually to sort of smooth off the edges. The wings themselves are fairly self-explanatory, obviously. They do have these sort of blade pieces in trans blue, which is pretty nice. Gives it more of a futuristic look, and I'm sure will fit with the style of the 2020 Ninjago stuff. Moving back along the wing, you can actually see there's a hinge piece here, and this is incredibly crucial to the structural integrity of this thing, because without it, the wings would literally just fall right off. So this basically locks the A bracket pieces, that's what I'm calling them. I'm sure that's not the actual name. So this basically locks the wings into this position so they won't move and they won't fall off, and it actually works really well, so that's nice. And towards the end of the wings, there's really nothing there. So yeah. So rather than launching the projectiles from the spring-loaded shooters with your hand, you use these exhaust pipe pieces, which sort of imitate, I guess, piping throughout the plane, so that makes sense. They're supported up with some studs on top of a modified plate, which makes sense, so it gives it the proper angle so that when you press down on it, it fires the dart, and the advantage of that means that when you place the dart back in, the exhaust pipe piece just kind of pops back up into place, which is something LEGO loves to do with these sort of features. I mean, obviously, it makes it a lot easier because rather than manually having to lift up the exhaust pipe piece and slide the projectile back in, it just kind of automatically does all that. So it sort of is just a self-resetting feature. That's one of my favorite things about this. Definitely an interesting feature to get the angles right with, so I'm happy with the way that came out. And of course, that is also symmetrical, so it's on the other side the exact same way. One of the more unique things about this plane that actually gives it some more interesting depth and shaping, I guess, is this sort of horizontal bar that connects the two wings to the sort of main body of the aircraft. And this really is an interesting design choice, because I'm sure it probably isn't aerodynamic, as I said earlier, but it does kind of define the overall shape of this, giving it more of a triangular shape to this aircraft, which is pretty interesting actually. It's a bit more unique compared to some of the older Ninjago planes, I guess. There really aren't that many of them, but it does sort of set it apart. Lastly, looking at this thing from underneath, you can see that it is relatively simply built with a lot of plates, and there aren't a huge number of studs on top techniques. Obviously, there are some in the front, but as we sort of move back through the plane, there's not really as many. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up the sort of close-up look at this thing. There's a lot of intricate details that you'll just have to kind of look at and discover yourself, I guess, as you look through this video. But yeah, that pretty much is it for what I'm going to say on the overall model. So this really wouldn't be a custom set without some custom figures as well. So seeing as this is a $20 set, it's most likely that this is probably going to come with 2 figures. So let's jump right into those. So this is my take on what Season 12 Kai might be like. Obviously, we don't really know what the ninja outfits are going to look like for Season 12. We know this season is going to be most likely centered around gaming. So for Kai, we've got the Season 11 hood piece along with that sort of Season 11 shoulder armor piece. The torso is the rebooted version for Kai, and the legs are, I believe, Day of the Departed. So overall, just some different iterations of Kai's sort of thrown together in one figure. We've also got a transparent blue arm, which I guess sort of fits the style of the sort of gaming season. Moving on from that, we really don't know much about the villains for this season. Most likely it'll be something gaming related once again, slash Digiverse thing themed, I don't know. Anyway, this is sort of what I've come up with. This is sort of a technology-esque villain, reminiscent, I guess, of Rebooted somewhat. We're using General Vex's headpiece actually here, which I think works quite well, and in a sense it almost looks like electricity rather than ice, which is a nice little effect. We're using the Season 7 iteration of Samurai X's head. As far as torso and legs, there's really nothing to go off of, so I just kind of came up with a custom design that I thought sort of made sense, and yeah, it's really up to you whether you like this or not. I think it's fairly mediocre, I don't know. Again, it's really up to how these figures will actually look, but as far as design and as far as what I did, I'm actually pretty personally happy with this. Overall, that pretty much wraps up everything I have to say about my custom Kai's Mech Jet set. This should be an interesting set. I'm sure the name will change because that tends to always happen with these sort of leaked sets, I guess. So yeah, this is a really interesting set to design. I'm excited to do a lot more stuff in the future. I'm sure I'm not just going to do Ninjago. I'm probably going to do more speculation sets with other things as well, other themes. So yeah, stay tuned for all that stuff. This really should be an interesting wave of Ninjago. I'm very excited to see what happens. So if you guys obviously did enjoy this video, make sure to like, subscribe, do all that stuff as I said earlier, and I'll see you guys all in the next video. Goodbye.